So if you were going to fix things and create a police accountability commission that fixed the problems that you saw when you were serving as chair of a police accountability commission, what should we be getting that we're not?
Well, we need some independence from the police department, independence, sort of political independence. So that could happen a couple of different ways. One, I don't think the mayor should be involved in appointing members because, as we've heard so often, the mayor is the head of the police department. Whoever Jacob Fry, whoever succeeds him, whomever. That person is the head of the police department. So for that person to control who's on the commission, even if they appoint exactly the same people I would appoint, there still is this appearance of, trying to doctor the system a little bit.
Yeah, essentially, this commission is to do oversight on whether the mayor is doing a good job in his role as the boss of MPD.
Basically, yeah.
And so before we get any further, we should say that the original draft of the ordinance was amended to give the mayor more appointment power. It went from like 2 out of 15 mayoral appointments to 7 out of 15. And that was done in exchange for upping the number of civilians versus police on the review panels. It was 2 and 2, and now it's 3 civilian and 2 police.
I think that's a raw deal.
Yeah.
I don't know that helps anything.
Right.
Especially because also within the new proposal, it says that a quorum is a majority of the appointed seats, regardless of vacancy. So they're saying that there's going to be 15 seats, so a quorum will always be 8. So what if the mayor just decides he or she doesn't like how the commission is going and just doesn't appoint his or her people, which is what's happening today.
Right.
And so there just are no people to review the files.
I think they changed something about the quorum language yesterday in an amendment, but I don't remember. Did you get a look at the whole packet?
Just what you sent me with those red lines.
Okay. And then you didn't see that fixed in any of the red lines?
No. So it looked like the quorum. Oh, I know what you're talking about. It was in order to have agenda items or agenda topics or formal actions. It has to be voted on by a majority of people present at that meeting,
right.
Not a majority of the quorum, because that was weird math. So I think that's what you're talking about. So the quorum thing is still a problem.
Okay. All right.
And another thing is, I don't know if you noticed this, but today, MPD officers, former MPD officers, can't sit on the commission or the review panels, but they took that out. So now former MPD officers can be on this new commission and sit on the review panels as a civilian, not as an officer, and sit on the commission. So the mayor could appoint 7 police officers, essentially.
So I interrupted you, and we were talking about political independence was the first thing you said that it needed, and this is kind of failing on that in terms of giving the mayor, half the appointees almost.
Yeah, and then they added this thing. So today, a person can be removed from the review panel or the commission for misconduct, which, makes sense, like if you share public-private data or something. But they changed it to all members serve at the pleasure of the appointing authority. So basically what that means is if the mayor or the council doesn't like you, they can just yank you at any moment, which is definitely not political independence.
Was that in the old commission? Was that also a thing there?
No. This is the new edition. This is the new.
These seem like bad changes. You know what I would have appreciated is to start with a red line document so we could see what's different from the old commission to the new one, because that's where you're going to find the stuff.
Yeah, Paul Ostro said that. He's former president of council, of course. He's been on your show, and he said that to me. Like he asked me for the marked up version, and I said, "Well, I don't have one. I don't think one exists." And he said,
right.
"That's crazy. That's not how we change ordinances. It's just not how it's done. Otherwise, you can't compare."
Yeah, it's impossible to follow, especially if you're starting from a place of not being familiar, and you're very familiar. And Paul Ostro is a very smart lawyer guy.
Yeah.
This is difficult stuff, and it seems like they're hiding stuff. One thing that stood out to me in yesterday's, was it yesterday? Yeah, Wednesday. The amendment process was Paul Masano was delivering Council President Jenkins various amendments that she had arrived at during her conversations with the mayor, and she described it as a minor change to the composition related to the appointing authority or something like that. Didn't like give the math. It would have been easy to say we're going from 2 mayoral appointees to 7. Like, that's not a long sentence to give. You didn't have to say, oh, this is just a minor one, and not give the details. So I had to wait till after the meeting to actually see that they had upped the percentage. Now I know what Elliot Payne was irritated by just watching the meeting, because he could actually read it and I couldn't. So,
well, I think that's a problem for. I think that probably violates the open meeting law for one thing, because they're supposed to have all the materials sort of out so everyone can see them.
Right. I was watching the stream, and so they had copies. They said everyone can come get a copy, but since I'm watching at home, I can't. I have no idea what's happening. Okay. Any other things you'd want to see besides political independence?
Yeah. Number one thing we fought for all the time was access to data. Access to data, and that's not included in this. And there's a really simple fix, and this is something we've advocated for. We did advocate for to the council, was under the Minnesota Data Practices Act. So they cite that all the time and say, we can't give you this or that. There's a provision, I wrote it down. There's a provision, Rule 12.05.0400, subpart 2, that says individuals within an entity whose work assignment reasonably requires access can access private, confidential, non-public data. And real quick fix is just to say everyone on this commission is that these are individuals who need to access data. And there's a whole process within open meeting law and within the Data Practices Act of how a public-facing body can review private data. Council does it all the time. The mayor does it all the time. When you're reviewing the private data, you close the meeting so that you're not, leaking information. And then you kind of have that piece of the discussion, then you can kind of come back. So there's a whole process in place. It's existed for, I don't know, a long time, decades.
And it's an obvious thing. So to not do this very obvious thing it's intentional, right? I mean, it really feels intentional. It really does. It really does, especially since we've lobbied so hard and we've lobbied for that particular provision. We're like, hey, there is a fix to this. There is a legal fix to this. We can do it. We've had guest speakers who wrote the Data Practices Act or parts of the Data Practices Act. It's possible. It's possible. And, again, change the ordinance, please. Change the oversight system. Yes, I want that. There's good ways to do it. We can do it. So political independence, access to data.
Yeah.
2 big things. Are there more things that we're missing?
Yeah. So state law says that civilians can't issue discipline or make a finding. So the finding comes from the chief. But it doesn't say anything about policy or, anything else. So just take discipline and put it off to the corner. There's all this other stuff that a civilian oversight commission could do. So one thing that I would love to see happen is that the mayor and the chief and the city attorney would have to get an affirmative vote from the commission before making any changes to the MPD policy manual. One thing that we saw happen, we were in the commission. So we discovered this whole coaching thing, and coaching is discipline, coaching is not discipline. We had this whole conversation. And then we lost quorum, couldn't meet again. And while we didn't have quorum, the mayor and the chief changed the MPD policy manual to say that discipline is no longer mandatory. Discipline is now optional, and coaching is a thing, and coaching is not discipline, and boom. And didn't say doodly squat to the commission about it. And I think the commission or the public should have had some notice of that or some say in that. And the commission is the way that the public has a say, because the meetings are public and, you put these items on the agenda and the people come mostly the same people, but people come and, they offer their input, and that's how,
it's a forum. Like,
a forum.
information is disseminated to the community. Somebody who was at the meeting hears about it and tells other people what happened. And it's a forum for a back and forth between the executive branch and this oversight body, which I think is something we've really, I mourn in this transition to a strong mayor form of government. So much more would happen at the council, which is a public thing, whereas the mayor's office is we've decided, and here's a press release, and this new thing is happening, and this is the first we're hearing about it because they decided today was, the politically advantageous time to announce it. But there's no give and take telling the public about it to get feedback.
I think we lost a lot with that. I agree with you.
Okay. Any more things that we're missing?
You mentioned that it's quite a lot of work. In an ideal world, there'd be some better compensation so that folks could do this. Maybe there would be a dedicated staff to the commission. One thing the clerk's office and the civil rights office told us is that they just didn't have enough staff time to do our research projects or provide us data. And I hear that, everyone's doing a lot of work. So, funding and support that way. One idea some of the leadership of NACOL suggested is you could tie the funding for this civilian group, whatever it's called, directly to the police department budget. So the Oversight Commission or whatever you call it has 1% of whatever the police budget is. Something doesn't have to be 1%, but you know what I mean?
Suggesting a police oversight minimum in the charter?
Yes! Change the charter! Change the charter!
Okay, if we're going to have a police staffing minimum in the charter, we should have a police oversight minimum in the charter. That's a good idea.